I am Dariella Nieves, and you are Kicking It With Me. Hey there, guys. Today I want to talk with you about 10 powerful secrets, 10 power thoughts, 10 ways to activate your personal power. I think that it's important that in these days and times we realize that one of the only things that we can control in life is ourselves, our own behavior, our own beliefs, our own thoughts and actions. We can control what we're thinking about. We can control our behaviors, what we do, who we hang around with, what we ingest when it comes to the media, emails, even podcasts that we listen to. I'm glad you're listening to me. And we need to activate and learn how to reactivate that power that we have within, because we all have it. And so what I want to do is kind of go through some things that I actually found in an old email that I want to adapt for today, because we're living in a time where our culture is really feeling powerless, hopeless with our political climate, with personal things going on in our lives, the circumstances that we're finding ourselves in. Because, sometimes when things happen in your life, it's not always because of something that you did. It's not always because you messed up. It could be something that's just a part of life that is really no one's fault, or something that you can't control. But we can control ourselves and how we think and how we decide to react or be proactive about what's going on. So let's go through it. First of all, I'm going to give you all of these 10 powers, and then I'll bounce on each one of them a little bit just to give you food for thought. Okay. Here are the 10 powers. Number 1, the power of thought. Number 2, the power of respect. Number 3, the power of giving. Number 4, the power of friendship. Number 5, the power of touch. Number 6, the power of letting go. Number 7, the power of communication. Number 8, the power of commitment. Number 9, the power of passion. And number 10, the power of trust. Man. All right. So this is going to be lit, right? Okay. So power number 1 for your activating your personal power is the power of thought. People, when they want to control someone, oftentimes one of the first things they do is try to break them down, brainwash them, make them repeat things. Sometimes we talk about affirmations, about believing things, repeating positive things over and over again so that it gets into our soul and that we believe in ourselves and we love ourselves and all that good stuff. But people can also use the power of thought against another person to make them believe the worst of themselves, make them believe they don't matter, that they have no control, that they're not good enough, that they're whack. So what I want to talk to you about with this personal power is to remind you of a few things. Love, whether it's self-love or love for others, that begins first with our thoughts. We become what we think about, and loving thoughts create loving experiences and loving relationships. Affirmations, like I said, they can change our beliefs and thoughts about ourselves and others. And if we want to love someone, we need to consider their needs and desires. So thinking about your ideal partner, for example, would help you recognize him or her when you meet them. Those things that we think about often, those things can manifest, they affect us physically. If you think about something long enough that's negative, which could also be called something like worry, you're going to have psychosomatic effects over that, which means that you might start getting a stomach ache. You might get a headache that won't go away no matter how many Excedrin you take, So that is something that we need to remember, is that everything that I'm talking about in this episode, first, you got to start with your thoughts. If your mind ain't right, if you got what they call stinking thinking, you're not going to get very far no matter how productive you try to be, because there'll always be something inside that's just not right. Power number 2 is the power of respect. You cannot love anyone or anything until you first respect them. The first person you need to respect, of course, is yourself. To begin to gain self-respect, you need to ask yourself, what do I respect about myself? And to gain respect for others, even those that you don't really particularly like, you need to ask yourself, what do I respect about them? And when I'm using that word over and over again, but really what I'm saying is, what do you admire? What is a good small little kernel that you can pull out of what that person is doing. There are times where people are elected into office or people have a certain role just based on, being born, the patriarch of the family or the matriarch of the family. And it is very possible that you don't like that person that is holding that office or holding that role. Maybe they really have a stank attitude. Maybe they don't have good leadership skills. Maybe they're just really annoying to be around, and just the sound of their voice just gives you this really horrible feeling like your skin is crawling. But I believe we still have to respect people that are in those certain roles, just by the fact that they hold those roles. Now, it doesn't mean that you do things that are wrong because they hold those roles. So, for instance, if your mother or father is asking you to do something illegal or something that is morally wrong, it doesn't mean, oh, okay, I'm going to do this because you're my mother or because you're my teacher or because you're the president. It means that you hold respect for their office and their role, but yet you still have the thought, going back to number one, and the mindset that, I'm going to do what I know is right. I'm going to do what I believe in just because it's good, just because I know it's for the best. People often will abuse their power and abuse their authority because people, blur those lines. I'm saying that there's a difference between respect and, just blindly following someone. So take that into account. First, we have thought. Number two, we have respect. Number three, the power of giving. This one is huge because giving, sometimes people automatically think about money, right? And like I talked about in a previous podcast where I was doing a fundraiser for my deceased husband, I said, giving money is great, but there's lots of things that you can give that money just can't do. When you give of your time, when you, physically go somewhere and, you're getting your hands dirty, you're getting on your knees, you're sitting with people, talking with people, money can't buy that. You're a volunteer. You're doing this out of the goodness of your heart. That is giving. It's not just money. And so if you want to receive love, all you have to do is give it. And love is shown, in my opinion, by action. Love is action. I don't believe that you can show someone love without doing something for them. You can't just go to somebody and say, I love you, I love you, I love you, and not do anything for them. There has to be some act of service. There has to be action. You have to do something in order to show your love. This is a place where random acts of kindness come in. Sometimes people call them RAKS, R-A-K-S. Just doing something just because, Immediately I think about, somebody helping an old lady that's crossing the street. Maybe there's a woman that is pregnant or she's pushing a carriage and she's maybe got another kid or she's got a lot of groceries or something. You don't have to stop and do anything for another person, but there's just some things that are just common courtesy. Holding the door for somebody. You see somebody coming behind you, just hold the door from them for a second. How much time does that take? How much did it cost you? Was it $5 for you to hold that door? I mean, really, it's okay. I think sometimes people are just so self-absorbed. They're staring at their phones everywhere they go. They're just so caught up in themselves that they don't even see people that are right in front of them. And I think we just need to be a little bit more aware of our surroundings and just be a little bit more kind, a little bit more compassionate than we're used to being, because the world really needs it right now. We really, really need it more than ever before. Also, I would say when it comes to giving, like when it comes to a relationship or a friendship, that core value is going to be making sure that each person is giving more than they expect to take. Coming into that friendship or that relationship, not just with what they can get from that other person, but from what they can give them. We talk about this so much when it comes to business relationships and networking. We talk about give. When it comes to online marketing, a lot of people talk about, make sure you do a big give before you do a big ask. You don't just come into the room and just ask for stuff. Look at me, look at my stuff. You have to give. You have to show that you care. Again, this is love. This is what it's all about. And I'm going to keep talking about love during this podcast because that's at the root of it all. Number 4, the power of friendship. Here we go. If you want to find true love, have a true passion for something, you have to first find a true friend. You can't do this by yourself. All of us need support. We all need somebody to be able to talk to, not just to get help and get ideas, but also just to be able to vent, to have a safe place for having someone to talk to about those things that you're feeling, those things that are getting on your nerves, those things that you're having issues with without having judgment. And so the power of friendship is completely undisputed. None of us can live in a vacuum and just live in complete solitude. That's why solitary confinement is one of the worst punishments you can give someone in prison, because there's like almost no human connection whatsoever. When you are good friends with someone or you're in a good relationship, it's not about looking in each other's eyes and all the butterflies and stuff. It's really about looking outward together, outward in the same direction. You know, you guys are of one accord. You guys have the same focus. You're going in the same direction. You guys are in alliance. Friendship is the soil through which love's seeds grow. And if you want to bring love into a relationship, you have to first be friends. And I know you've heard that so many times, but that is like the worst part of the loss that I recently had of my husband, is that I lost my best friend literally. Literally. He would listen to anything I had to say. And even if he didn't really care about the subject, he would like pretend he did. And he would listen and we would feed off of each other. And he was so, so very supportive of me and all of my endeavors, including this podcast. So that is the worst loss. When you love someone so much, whether you're in a platonic relationship or a romantic one, that's just absolutely priceless. Fifth power is the power of touch. Touch is one of the most powerful expressions of love because it breaks down barriers and it bonds relationships when you touch someone. There's people that don't like to be touched for various reasons, but I think that, you know, originally when you touch someone, that is supposed to be love. That is supposed to be something nurturing. I know there was some study done somewhere, I don't even think it was America, where there were tons of babies in this facility that were being cared for, but they weren't nestled, they weren't held and rocked and rubbed and things like that. It was just like, listen, feed them, change their diapers, let them sleep. That's it. The ones that were held and cradled and loved and nestled, those babies thrived. But the babies that just had their needs met and that's it, they did not thrive. I think some of them died. And so that just shows you at the most basic level the power of touch, because when you're a baby, you know, you don't have all these preconceived notions of what different touches mean and things like that. You know, if you have what you need, if you feel comfortable or not as a baby. A baby will not go near certain people or unless they start, you know, if they'll react, they'll start crying or something if they, you know, get that vibe that is just not right. They just don't like that person. And there doesn't need to be a deep conversation or communication about it. You know this. You know when you see a small child or a baby go to certain people and when they just don't want to be bothered. Touch is just a key way of empowering someone. I remember a time, I don't remember exactly where I was, but I was at some event and there was a woman that came up to the front to talk about something briefly, and she just started to break down and cry. And I don't even think she was with anybody. I don't think like she was there with a friend. I think she just came on her own. And I didn't even think about it for 2 seconds. I just jumped up and went and hugged her. I just couldn't help it. And I didn't like hold her and caress her and rub her head and all of that in public. But I just wanted to have her feel my arm around her like, this is some encouragement. Say what you got to say. It's all good. It's okay that you're crying. This country shames people for crying. You know, we've got reality shows where people are crying over different things, and I won't go deep into that one, but there's just all these different ways that we see people cry, and we get desensitized to it. And feelings really are valid. And I think that we need to be less cold when someone is really hurting and in pain and expresses themselves that way. It's not to say that if you're not crying, that you're not in pain and that nothing hurts and that everything is all good. But if someone does express themselves that way, for us to just ignore it, I think is just wrong. And so sometimes that touch is really needed. You know, at least hand them a tissue or something. You know, don't just be so cold and act like they're not crying. Touch is like just a really powerful expression of love. And it It changes our physical and emotional state. It makes us more receptive, I think, when it's a good touch, when it's what I used to say to my daughter when she was little, a nice touch, not a rough touch, but a nice touch. And I think I'm pretty sure that touch is one of Gary Chapman's famous 5 love languages. There are people that really, really need that touch. There's certain people that maybe they don't want to be touched, but some people they do. And if you go a long time without touching them, you're in a relationship with them, it could be an issue. Even your kids, there's times where my daughter acts like she doesn't want me to hug her. She's like 15. She doesn't necessarily want to be hugged all the time. But man, when she does, or when I can sneak one in, I totally do, because she needs that. I know she needs it. It's not an overwhelming, overbearing thing. It's just another way to say I love you without saying it. Number 6, the power of letting go. Wow, that's powerful. I think the only way to really, really, really deal with control issues is to force yourself to let go. You got to force yourself to do it. I don't care if you're a perfectionist. I don't care if you're super hands-on. Got to learn how to let go of things. Whether it's a business project, whether it's decisions that maybe your best friend or maybe an adult child is making that you don't agree with. Maybe a sibling, has chosen a life partner that you just can't stand. That, they're too good for them, that this person is not right for them. There are some things that we have to let go of, because if we don't, they take over our brains. It's worse than worry, because it just stays there in the back of your mind, and it's a burden. Even if you can't really see it or you don't think about it all the time, it's just there. And those are the worst burdens, are the transparent ones, because you've gotten so used to having them and carrying them around. When it comes to relationships, people need their own space sometimes. Learning to love someone means that you have to first learn to forgive and to let go of past hurts and grievances. And I've talked about forgiveness before in previous episodes. And if you haven't listened, season 1, I interviewed a woman named Erica, and she is the author of Altercation. And she talks about how basically she was like this close to getting married, and then her fiance broke it off. And how did she learn how to forgive? And she's a forgiveness facilitator now. And so I think it's really important that we learn how to let go of, ideologies we grew up with, past hurts, so that we can move forward, so that you can continue on with your life. It doesn't mean that you don't care about what happened, or that because you've forgiven someone, then that means you're saying that what they did was okay and that it didn't hurt you. It just means that you're relinquishing their power, or the power of their indiscretion on your life. So if there was something that they did to you, you don't want that thing to have so much power over you, whether, they assaulted you, whether they talked about you, whether they stole from you, whatever it was that they did, you don't want that event to have power over your life for the rest of your life. That's giving them too much power, and you need to be able to move on. Again, doesn't mean that you're saying it's okay. It just means that you need to take your power back. One of the things that you can say to yourself about this until you do, as I would quote, get over it. One of the things you could say to yourself is every day say, today I let go of all my fears. The past has no power over me. Today is the beginning of a new life. That's just an example of something that you can say to yourself every day, even like a couple of times a day if you need to, until you're able to get on with life without thinking about that issue all the time. Number 7, the power of communication. Man, do we have a problem with communication in this country? Yes. Technology is making it worse. we think we're great because we're so connected. We can text someone anytime, anywhere in the world. We can get to them. We have our phone, which is like a mini computer that's in our pocket or in our hand all the time. That's not connectedness. Okay. That's just craziness. It's crazy. It's making us crazy, and it's making us obsessive about the wrong things, and we're not connected. I don't care if you have 1 million Facebook friends and Twitter followers combined. Doesn't mean that you're connected to those people. It means you can see little bits and pieces of their life, but you don't know how they're doing. You probably don't even really actually know half of those people. Have you really met all of those people that you're connected to? I think not. The power of communication is so important because we have gotten so lazy now with technology as to how we communicate. And I'm not just talking about the little acronyms that we use, the IKR or whatever, type of acronyms that we use to shorten things, abbreviations. I'm talking about the value of being able to look someone in the eye, to be able to have that power of touch I talked about a few minutes ago, to have that proximity. There's no substitution for that. When we learn to communicate openly and honestly without fear of judgment, it's life-changing. You cannot love someone without communicating with them. You can't have a great working relationship with someone without communicating with them. You can't have a good friendship without being able to really, truly communicate. I think it's really important for us to always take the time, even if it's just periodically, a couple times a year, let other people know how much we appreciate them, how much we care about them. It's really important because you just never know. At the time of this recording, just passed two major news stories where a couple of really prominent celebrities committed suicide. And people were like, oh my gosh, they just seemed fine. They were on top of the world. Somebody had to know that they weren't well, that they weren't feeling good about life, that they were having problems. They may not have known that they were going to kill themselves, and I'm not saying that it's their fault that those people decided to take their own lives. I'm just saying that we need to do a better job of staying connected with each other. And when I say connected, I don't just mean a text message. I mean, call you, see how you're doing. One of my cousins, his birthday was in the beginning of June, and he called me on his birthday. He called me to talk to me, see how I was doing, make sure my number still worked, and to thank me for the birthday card that I sent him. And, I've been sending birthday cards to people for years, ever since really I became an adult. Anyone whose birthday that I knew and who I had their address for, this is pre-Facebook now, anyone whose information that I had, I would send them a birthday card every year, as well as a Christmas card. Didn't matter if they were male or female. I didn't care. I had all different kinds of categories. I've got the anniversary category. I've got masculine cards. I've got, little kid cards. I've got all kinds of cards, thank you cards, sympathy cards, every kind of greeting card, except the holidays. I don't really do like Easter and all the other ones. But your birthday is a special day. And for most of us, our birthday is just our birthday. It's not necessarily a holiday. Now, my birthday is sometimes on Thanksgiving. There are some people that I know are born on Christmas, July 4th. But most of us that are listening right now, our birthday is not a holiday. And so for someone to remember you and to celebrate you, that's golden. And I think that when someone takes the time to appreciate it, whether it's just a quick thank you or like my cousin did, who I haven't spoken to in a few years, actually, to call me up, make sure my number still worked, and see how I was doing and thank me on his birthday when he probably was getting ready to go to dinner and do his own thing. That meant a lot to me. And so we just got to do a better job with communication and staying in touch with people. Don't ever be afraid to tell someone you love them if you do. And if they are kind of uncomfortable with that type of thing, you don't have to make it really intense, but let them know how you feel. Never let an opportunity pass to praise somebody if they deserve it. You should always leave somebody that you love with a loving word, because you just don't know if it's the last time that you're ever going to see them or talk to them. If you were about to die and you could make a phone call to someone that you loved, who would you call? What would you say? And then my final question on this is, why are you waiting to do that? I think that you should go ahead right now and just make a list of at least 3 people. And then when this episode is over, go on ahead and start calling. Leave a voicemail. If they don't listen to voicemails, just leave it anyway, because you never know, they might listen. And that's something, again, with the passing of my husband, that is something that I'm so grateful for, is that I have recordings of his voice. My husband did not leave voicemails. He just did not. I think he left a couple when I made him do so with his kids, but for the most part, he wasn't a voicemail type of person, and he just didn't bother with it. But I have his voice recorded. So at any time that I want to hear what his laugh sounded like, or what he sounded like when he was speaking Spanish or anything like that, I've got different recordings of it. You might want to do that because we all have pictures of people that we love, but sometimes what we really miss the most is their voice. The voice is so powerful. So when you're communicating with someone, ask them, can I record part of this? Because if they don't leave a voicemail, you might want to hear their voice again sometime. Okay. All right. Next, number 8, the power of commitment. If you want to have love in abundance, then you have to be committed to it. And that commitment is going to be reflected in your thoughts and actions. I am a super, super uber goal getter, always been very ambitious. I am not a firstborn child. I'm a middle child, but I've got a ton of firstborn tendencies. I don't know why. I think it's like from my parents. It's got to be. But when you have commitment and you have discipline, which is really what I'm talking about here, you're unstoppable. You are freaking unstoppable with that. If you're committed to someone in the friendship or the relationship, you're not just going to let go and give up because they pissed you off, because they cursed you out, because they made a mistake. Now, if they made the same mistakes 30,000 times and they kept disrespecting you, then maybe, that's something right there, because you got to respect yourself first. But I'm talking about being committed to stay through and see something to the end, whether it's an actual project that you're working on, if it's a friendship, a relationship, until it runs its course. Don't be so quick to give up on things and quit things. It's so easy to just have all these half-done, half-assed projects lying around and relationships that could have been something if you had just stuck it out. Commitment really distinguishes a fragile relationship from a strong one. It really shows you who has skin in the game. Now there's sometimes not use for just having one person fighting for something, but sometimes there is. It's a judgment call that you have to make. I can't just make this a blanket thing, but you have to admit that as different types of relationships go in this day and age, commitment is sorely lacking. When I see a couple that has been together for 30, 40, 50 years, and they're happily married after all those years, like that is a rare gem. That is not something you see every day, unfortunately. It is not. When you see someone that has been working in one position or in one job for that many years, if they are thriving and they're progressing and they're doing well and they're working in their gift and their element, that is a beautiful thing. It is a wonderful thing to see. And it's really encouraging for the younger generation. I'm not so much talking about millennial generation, but the generation after that, whatever that is, I don't know, whatever comes after millennials. Because the younger ones are just used to hopping around. Okay, well, this don't work with this person. I'm going to just go to this person. Oh, this job don't work out. Well, I'm just going to get another job. If there's something you really, really, really want, see it through. If there's a goal you have, I hate to use this because it's so overused, but it works. Losing weight, getting to another position. You got to use that discipline. You have to plan. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to be committed to this. I promise I'm going to do this. You've got to have a plan because human nature is going to set in and you're not going to feel like doing it. It's going to be a morning where you're going to wake up, you're going to be like, whatever. I ain't getting up. I don't care. And you have to have that why and that drive and that plan to keep you motivated when you don't feel like doing it, because all of us get to that point where we don't feel like getting up. We don't feel like doing the work. All of us. Just got to make sure that it doesn't get the best of you so you don't lose focus. Almost there, guys. Number 9, the power of passion. Passion. Just saying the word passion is passionate. Passion. Passion ignites love and it keeps it alive. It keeps our goals alive. It keeps whatever we're working towards alive if we're passionate about it. Lasting passion, in the case of, let's say, like a relationship, it doesn't come from, just physical attraction because sometimes our looks change. Sometimes we don't always feel like doing passionate things with that person, but it comes from, again, a deep commitment and enthusiasm and interest, excitement, and a common goal. You can recreate passion as well by recreating past experiences when you felt passionate. So, you could think about something that you really did that you enjoyed and try some of those techniques again. Now, spontaneity and surprises can also produce passion in a relationship, but the essence of love and happiness are the same. All we need to do is just live each day with passion. And I think that passion comes from just knowing like where your sweet spot is and learning the things that you enjoy and how you can bring more of the things that you enjoy into your life, bringing more of what you love into your life. There will always be things about day to day that we don't really care for. There'll be things that we would rather hand off to an assistant, especially if we don't have an assistant to hand them off to. But for the most part, if we could find ways to incorporate more things that we love, more things that we enjoy, more things that allow us to flow in our element, that's going to help with the last point about commitment and discipline because we're passionate about it. So that's why, you could stay up really late when you're like really obsessed with something. If you you get on Netflix or YouTube or something and you're like watching a particular thing and you could just keep going and going and going and going, it's because you're passionate about getting through that season or going through that creator's backlog of videos or what have you. That is passion too. So once you get excited about something, take note of it. Make sure that gets incorporated into your life on a regular basis. We don't want to just work all the time and not have any fun or have any passion because then we'll look up, it'll be the end of the year and we'll be feeling bad about what we, have accomplished or how we just feel about overall how things went. Finally, number 10 is the power of trust. It is so important for us to be able to trust in things that we believe, even if we don't see them. Faith and trust are very closely related, and when you trust someone or something, you just believe it's going to happen. You go to sit down in a chair. You don't look at the chair up and down. You don't stare at the legs of the chair and start shaking it and do all that. Most of us don't anyway. Normally, when you get into a chair, you just sit down in it. You don't inspect the thing. You just sit. You just know that when you put your butt down, you're going to be good. You're not going to go on the floor. Because if that were the case, that you felt like you were going to go on the floor, you would inspect every single chair you ever sat in, right? So we've got to believe that certain things will work out for the best. I'm a Christian and I believe there's a Bible verse that is Romans 8:28 that basically says that everything that happens in life is working together for the good that God wants to accomplish in the world. And we have to trust that it will. So even things like the death of a loved one, I didn't feel good about that at all. And I still don't. But I have to believe that something good is going to come out of that painful experience that I had with my husband in the last years of his life. I have to believe that because if I don't believe that, that means that it was all for nothing. And we see it time and time again where we go through things that are really hard in life, or people that we love are going through things that are really hard in life. They're suffering or they're dealing with stuff that just is not their fault or it's just not there. And no matter how you slice it in your brain, you just can't figure out why. Why did this happen to this person? This was a good person. This person should not have had to deal with this. These are all the different things that we think about when we think about our situation or our loved one's situation. We have to trust that there is a higher purpose, that there's a purpose in the pain. I'm saying this in a way that's very matter of fact and like, oh, it's easy for her to say. But I'm telling you, I'm still dealing with this right now. I'm still dealing with this. I still think about my husband every single day, and I still wonder why, he had to die. And I think it's not fair. I think a lot of things about it. But my faith and my trust in God is what keeps me going. If I didn't have that, then I would have just gave up. I should have been like, what's the point? What's the point in any of this? Why even get in a relationship? Why do anything? You can't get like that. You can't get so jaded. You can't get so cynical that you just give up. We can't. There's things that we should let go of, but that's not one of them. We should always have hope, and we should always learn not just who to trust in, but what to trust. It's very important, I think, not to just trust anyone that acts like they're trustworthy. They got to show and prove. Trust is an essential thing in all types of relationships, business and personal. And without it, of course, you're going to be cynical. You're going to be suspicious, anxious, maybe even fearful. You don't want to ever feel trapped. You don't want to feel emotionally suffocated because you can't trust that other person to do their part. And I think it's impossible to love someone completely unless you trust them completely. Really, really hard. Sometimes people, when they break up or when someone cheats on somebody or something, they'll say, well, I still love them, but I don't trust them. It's really hard to get over. It's not impossible, but that's one of the things that first comes out. You broke my trust. Trust is really, really easy to break. It takes a long time to build trust with someone and a short time to break it. That's why it's got to be a quality that you use as one of your personal powers and that you protect with as much as you can, because when someone trusts you, when you have a great reputation, when your work speaks for itself, when your partner knows that you've got their back, there's nothing like it. You're untouchable at that point. No one can ever say anything about you because your reputation precedes you. And I think something that you should evaluate is if you find that you don't trust someone, that you also are very careful about committing to them, which was one of our previous powers we discussed. Trust and commitment and communication, they all go together and they're integral. You can't really trust someone that you don't communicate with and then be committed to them. Like it just doesn't flow. They all got to go together. Unless you're just going to love them from a distance and not really be involved with them. But anyway, that is the show for today, folks. One more time, I want to recap. So, our 10 personal powers. 1, the power of thought. 2, the power of respect. 3, the power of giving. 4, the power of friendship. 5, the power of touch. 6, the power of letting go. 7, the power of communication. 8, the power of commitment. 9, the power of passion. And 10, the power of trust. See you next time, and thank you for kicking it with me.